The great hall of the Eternal Summit space station was filled with beings from 12 different worlds. They sat in a massive circle, each species in their own section. Blue lights floated above them, and the walls showed the stars outside. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful group in the known universe. High. Overlord Vex of the Korath Dominion stood at the center. He was tall, with gray skin and forearms. His eyes were black and cold. He looked around the room with the confidence of someone who had never been defeated. "We must discuss the human anomaly," he said. His voice was deep and filled the hall. "For 100 years, we have sent messages to their world. For 100 years, they have given us nothing but silence." The representatives whispered among themselves. The humans were strange. Every other species had rushed to join the galactic community when they received first contact. They wanted trade, technology, and alliance. But the humans? They read the messages. The council knew this. And then they simply did not reply. "Our scouts have studied their territory," Vex continued. He waved one of his arms, and images appeared in the air. Ships, stations, weapons. Their technology is primitive. Their fleet is small. They have perhaps 200 vessels, most of them old transport ships. They are weak. Elder Morvax of the Sindari Council leaned forward. He was covered in soft fur and had gentle eyes. "If they are so weak, why do they not fear us? Why do they not seek our protection?" Vex laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Because they are foolish. They do not understand the galaxy. They hide in their corner of space like frightened animals." "Perhaps," said a soft voice. Ambassador Lyris of the Velari stood up. She was slender, with silver skin that seemed to glow. Her people were watchers. They observed and studied. They rarely spoke at these meetings. "Perhaps we should consider another possibility." Vex turned to her with annoyance. "Speak, then." "My people have watched the humans longer than any other species," Lyris said. "We have observed something troubling. Their industrial output does not match what we see." "Explain," Elder Morvax said. Lyris touched a device on her wrist. New images appeared. Factories on Earth and Mars, and a dozen colony worlds. Massive mining operations in asteroid fields. Ships carrying materials that disappeared into regions the Velari could not observe. They produce enough resources for a fleet 10 times the size of what our scouts have found, Lyris said. "Where does it all go? What are they building that we cannot see?" Vex waved his hand dismissively. "You suggest they are hiding a secret fleet? Ridiculous. Your people see mysteries where there are none. The humans are simply inefficient. They waste resources like all primitive species." "I suggest caution," Lyris said firmly. "There is much about them we do not understand." "Caution is for the weak," Vex replied. "The Korath Dominion did not conquer 40 worlds through caution. We conquered them through strength." He looked around the council. "The humans sit on valuable territory. Rich planets. Rare minerals. They waste these gifts. I propose we integrate them into the galactic order. By force, if necessary." The vote took only minutes. The Korath, Sindari, Thalax, and Mirakai voted yes. They would send a fleet to the human colony called New Bizan. They would demand surrender. If the humans refused, they would take what they wanted. Lyris voted no. So did 3 other species. But it did not matter. The decision was made not far across the galaxy, on a world called Earth. Counselor Minji walked through a long underground tunnel. Her footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Armed soldiers stood at every door. Security scanners checked her identity 5 times before she reached her. Destination. The room at the end of the tunnel was massive. It stretched so far that she could not see the other end. And it was filled with ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. sleek and dark and covered in weapons she could not name. Admiral Tayo waited for her beside a window that looked out at the fleet. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm face. He had been waiting for this day for 30 years. "The council has voted," Ninji said. "They are sending a fleet to New Bizen." Tayo nodded slowly. "How many ships?" 200. Korath warships. "Is that all?" He almost smiled. Almost. "You knew this would happen," Minji said. "It was not a question." "I knew it was possible," Tayo replied. "That is why we prepared." He gestured at the ships around them. 100 years of silence. 100 years of building. 100 years of letting them believe we were weak. Minji looked at the fleet. She had served Earth her whole life. She had tried diplomacy. She had tried to make peace with species who saw humans as insects. Now she understood why the military had been given unlimited resources. Why did we never reply to their messages? She asked Te, who turned to face her fully. Because we studied them first. We watched how they treated weaker species. We saw the Korath enslave entire worlds. We saw the Sindari stand by and do nothing. We realized that the galaxy respects only one thing: power. He placed his hand on the window. So we became powerful, quietly, patiently. We let them think we were primitive fools, while we built weapons they cannot imagine. And now? Now they come to our door with fire in their hands. His eyes grew cold. And they will learn what human silence truly means. In another part of the underground facility, Dr. Hannah received a message on her private terminal. She read it twice to be certain. Then she stood and walked to a control panel covered in switches and buttons. Project Nightfall. That was the name of her life's work. Weapons and defenses that the galaxy had never seen. Technology that would make the Korath fleet look like children's toys. All of it sleeping, waiting, spread across every human world and hidden station. She placed her hand on the activation switch. "They finally came," she said softly. "Wake everything up." Across human space, lights began to turn on. Stations that had appeared dead came to life. Ships hidden in asteroid fields powered up their engines. Soldiers put on their armor. Pilots ran to their fighters. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would answer, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander. Thrall stood on the bridge of his warship and smiled. Through the viewing window, he could see New Bizen. It was a beautiful world. Blue oceans. Green forests. White clouds. Soon it would belong to the Korath Dominion. His fleet stretched out behind him. 200 warships. Each one was massive, covered in cannons and missile launchers. This was the pride of the Korath military. They had crushed rebellions and conquered civilizations. A small human colony would fall in hours. "Open a channel to the planet," Thrall ordered. His communications officer obeyed. "Channel open, Commander." Thrall spoke with a booming voice. "Humans of New Bizen, I am Commander Thrall of the Korath Dominion. By order of the Galactic Council, your world is now under our protection. You will surrender immediately. You will give us control of your government, your resources, and your military. If you resist, you will be destroyed." He waited. The bridge was silent. His officers watched their screens, expecting the quick surrender that always came when species faced Korath power. But there was nothing. No response. Only silence. Thrall frowned. "Send a message again." They did. Again, silence. "Scan the orbital stations," Thrall ordered. "What defenses do they have?" His sensor officer studied his equipment carefully. "I detect 5 orbital stations, Commander. They appear to be civilian. No weapons. No shields. They are completely defenseless." "Foolish creatures," Thrall said. They truly believed no one would ever attack them. He sat back in his command chair, moved the fleet into optimal firing range. We will disable their stations first. Show them we are serious. The Korath fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 200 ships of death, advancing on a world that seemed to have no way to fight back. Threll was already thinking about the rewards he would receive. Maybe his own planet to rule. They were halfway to the stations when every screen on every ship went dark for a single second. Then a woman's voice filled the bridge. It came from everywhere at once. You were warned by your own people, the voice said calmly. You chose not to listen. Threll jumped to his feet. Where is that coming from? Trace the signal. But before his officers could respond, the universe changed. The 5 orbital stations that had seemed so harmless began to transform. Panels slid open across their surfaces. Weapons appeared. Not the primitive cannons the Korath expected, but massive arrays of technology they had never seen before. Energy began to build inside them, glowing brighter and brighter. Commander, the sensor officer screamed. I am detecting ships. Ships everywhere. He was right. Space itself seemed to open up around the Korath fleet. Human vessels appeared from nowhere. They had been invisible, completely undetectable, and now there were hundreds of them. They were sleek and dark, covered in weapons that made the Korath ships look ancient. Captain Yuna sat in the command chair of the Silent Fury. Around her, her crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment for years. All ships, she said, begin attack pattern nightfall. Show them what we are. The human fleet attacked. Threll watched in horror as his ships began to explode. The human weapons were impossible. Beams of energy passed straight through Korath's shields like they did not exist. Missiles that were too fast to track slammed into hulls and tore them apart. Small human drones swarmed through the fleet in clouds of thousands, each one carrying enough explosives to destroy a cannon. Return fire. Threll screamed. Destroy them. His ships tried. They fired everything they had. Cannons roared. Missiles flew. But the human vessels moved like ghosts. They jumped through space in short bursts, appearing and disappearing faster than Korath weapons could aim. And when they were hit, their shields held against weapons that had conquered worlds. In 90 minutes. It was over. 180 Korath warships were destroyed. They floated in space as burning wreckage. Thousands of Korath soldiers were dead. The remaining 20 ships were damaged, their weapons destroyed, their engines failing. Threll's flagship was one of them. He stood on a bridge filled with smoke and screaming wounded. Half his officers were dead. Alarms filled the air with horrible noise. Commander, a weak voice said. It was his communications officer, bleeding from a wound on his head. We are receiving a message. Captain Yuna's face appeared on the damaged screen. She looked at Threll with cold, steady eyes. You will return to your masters, she said. You will show them what happened here. You will tell them that humanity gave them 100 years of peace. They answered with war. Now they will face the consequences. The screen went dark. Threll fell into his chair. His hands were shaking. He had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had never known fear like this. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy to conquer. He had been wrong. They all had been wrong. His damaged ship limped back to Korath space. It took days. When he finally arrived, he was brought before High Overlord Vex himself. The great ruler listened to his report in silence. He watched the recordings of the battle with his dark eyes showing nothing. They were waiting for us, Threll said, his voice broken. They knew we would come. Everything we believed about them was a lie. They hid their true power. They let us think they were weak. Vex said nothing for a long time. "This changes nothing," he finally said. "One battle does not win a war. We will gather more ships, more allies. We will crush them with numbers they cannot match." But Threll saw something in the High Overlord's eyes, something that had never been there before. Fear. On Earth, Admiral Tayo stood before the United Council. Every leader of every human nation and colony was present. They had watched the battle together. They had seen their secret fleet reveal itself. They had seen their technology destroy a force that was supposed to conquer them. "The Korath will not stop," Tayo said. "They will return with more ships, more allies." This was only the beginning. "Then what do we do?" asked the President of Earth. Counselor Minji stood up. She had been the one who tried diplomacy, who tried peace. Now her face was hard as stone. "We end this," she said. "Not by hiding, not by waiting for them to come to us again. We take the war to them. We make them understand that attacking humanity was the worst mistake they ever made." The vote was unanimous. That night, Minji stood before every camera on Earth. Her message was broadcast across the galaxy, to every species, every world, every ship with a receiver. "For 100 years, we asked only to be left alone," she said. "We did not threaten you. We did not attack you. We simply wished to live in peace. You answered our silence with violence. You sent warships to enslave our people." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was cold. "Now hear humanity's answer. We declare war on every civilization that supported this attack. We will not stop until you understand the price of your arrogance. You wanted to know what humanity was capable of. Now you will find out." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the broadcast. They saw the images of the destroyed Korath fleet. They saw the human ships that had appeared from nowhere, and for the first time, they felt afraid of the small species they had ignored for so long. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Bizhan, and the galaxy had learned to fear a new name: humanity. Human fleets moved through space like shadows of death. They struck Korath military bases without warning. They appeared from nothing, destroyed everything, and vanished before help could arrive. The Korath Dominion, which had ruled 40 worlds through terror, now felt terror themselves. General Dohan led the ground forces. He was a large man with a scarred face and hands that had seen countless battles. On the Korath colony of Vortek, he walked through streets that human soldiers now controlled. Korath civilians watched from windows with frightened eyes. "Sir," one of his captains said, "what do we do with the civilians?" Dohan stopped walking. He looked at the scared faces. Children hiding behind their parents. Old ones who remembered better days. "Give them food," he said. "Medicine. Whatever they need. We are not here to harm them. We are here to stop those who would harm us." His captain looked surprised. "The Korath would not show us such kindness." "We are not the Korath," Dohan replied firmly. "We are human. We fight soldiers, not families." Word of human mercy spread faster than their fleets. The Korath government told their people that humans were monsters who would kill everyone. But refugees told different stories. Stories of human soldiers sharing their own food, of human doctors treating Korath wounded. It confused them deeply, but mercy did not mean weakness. When Korath soldiers fought, humans fought harder. Their technology was generations ahead. Their tactics were impossible to predict. And they never stopped coming. High. Overlord Vex stood in his war room and watched the maps change color. Blue for Korath, red for human. Every day there was more red. "This cannot continue," said Elder Morvax, who had traveled to the Korath homeworld for this meeting. "Our allies are losing faith. The Thellocs refuse to send more ships. The Mirakai are considering surrender. Then we need more allies, Vex said. We need every ship in the galaxy. If we combine our forces, the humans cannot win. They are still one species. We are many. Morvax shook his head slowly. You do not understand. We watched the humans for a century and saw weakness. Now we watch them for 6 months and see strength. What else did we miss? What other surprises do they have? We have no choice, Vex growled. Form the coalition. Every species that will fight. Gather them at the Orvan Nebula. We will create a fleet so large that human technology cannot save them. The call went out. The Korath Dominion, the Sindari Council, the Felox Empire, and the Mirakai Federation. 4 great powers of the galaxy. They gathered their warships. Every vessel they could spare. Every soldier they could arm. 3,000 ships met at the Orvan Nebula. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Nothing like it had ever been assembled. Surely, they believed, no force could stand against such power. Admiral Tayo studied the reports on his flagship. 400 human vessels under his command. Less than 1 for every 7 enemy ships. Sir, Captain Yuna said from beside him, the odds are not in our favor. Taiho smiled slightly. It was a rare expression on his face. The odds have never been in our favor. And yet, here we are. He pressed a button on his command console. His face appeared on screens across the entire human fleet. All ships, he said. Today, we face an enemy that believes numbers alone decide victory. We will teach them otherwise. We will show them that humanity does not count ships. We count results. For Earth, for New Bizan, for every human who ever lived and died and dreamed of reaching the stars. The battle began at 0600 Galactic Standard Time. Lieutenant. Sun Wu was 23 years old. He had never seen combat before the war. Now he flew a fighter through the chaos of the greatest battle in history. The coalition fleet attacked with overwhelming force. Thousands of weapons fired at once. The darkness of space became bright with destruction. Any normal enemy would have been destroyed in minutes, but humans were not normal. Sun Wu watched in amazement as Admiral Taiho's plan unfolded. Human ships did not stay still to be shot. They jumped through space in short bursts, appearing behind enemy lines, firing, and vanishing again. The coalition could not track them. Their weapons hit empty space, where human vessels had been moments before. And then there were the boarding teams. General Doan had insisted on this. Soldiers in powered armor launched from human ships and landed on enemy hulls. They cut through walls with plasma torches. They stormed through corridors with weapons blazing. Within an hour, 30 coalition vessels had been captured, their crews taken prisoner. The coalition commanders panicked. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this. Their formations broke apart. Their coordination failed. Human ships tore through the gaps like wolves through sheep. This is impossible, Elder Morvax whispered, watching from his flagship far from the battle. How can so few defeat so many? By the time the coalition retreated, 2,100 of their ships were destroyed or captured. Human losses were less than 50. The debris field stretched for millions of kilometers. The battle was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched. Species that had considered joining the coalition saw the destruction and quietly decided to stay neutral. Some began sending secret messages to human diplomats, hoping to make peace before the war reached them. Ambassador Lyris watched the recordings alone in her quarters. She had warned them. At the council meeting that seemed so long ago, she had told them to be cautious. They had not listened. Now, she sent a message through secret channels to Counselor Minji. My people never supported this war, she wrote. We will give you intelligence on coalition movements. We will allow safe passage through our space. We wish only to prove that not all aliens are your enemies." Minji read the message and smiled. It was a cold smile, but there was hope in it. "We remember who raised weapons against us," she replied. "And we remember who stayed silent. Your people chose wisely." On the Korath homeworld, High Overlord Vex watched the battle recordings for the 100th time. His advisors stood around him, waiting for orders. "Perhaps," one of them said carefully, "we should consider negotiation. The humans have shown they can be reasonable. They treat prisoners well. They protect civilians. Maybe what?" Vex turned on him with fury in his eyes. "Maybe we should surrender? Maybe we should bow before these insects we were supposed to crush? Never. We are the Korath Dominion. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate with lesser species." He stood up from his throne. "Build more ships. Find more soldiers. We will fight until every human is dead or every Korath is gone." His advisors exchanged worried glances, but said nothing. Far away, in a laboratory on Earth, Dr. Hannah finished her final calculations. Phase 2 of Project Nightfall was ready. It was not a weapon of destruction. It was something far more terrifying. "They still think this is about firepower," she said to herself. "They still think bigger fleets will save them." She uploaded the program to the military network. They have no idea what is coming. The war continued. But now it was about to change completely. The Korath homeworld was supposed to be untouchable. Hundreds of defense satellites surrounded it. Thousands of patrol ships guarded every approach. Weapons platforms floated in orbit, ready to destroy any enemy foolish enough to attack. It was the most protected planet in the galaxy. Captain Yuna looked at it through her viewing window and smiled. Her fleet was invisible. 100 ships, all equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humanity had ever created. They had traveled for weeks through enemy territory, passing Korath patrols without being detected. Now they floated in the darkness beyond the homeworld's outer defenses, completely unseen. "All ships," she said quietly, "begin Operation Silent Night." The human vessels slipped past the defense satellites like ghosts. They avoided the patrol ships with ease. The weapons platforms never activated because they never knew anything was there. It was the most daring military operation in human history, and it was going perfectly. When they reached orbit, Yuna gave her next order. "Target the defense grid. All of it, but do not destroy it. Disable only." Human weapons were precise. Beams of energy struck exactly where they needed to strike. Power conduits overloaded. Control systems went dark. Communication towers stopped working. Within 30 minutes, every orbital defense around the Korath homeworld was offline, and then came the message. Every screen on the planet came to life at once. In homes and offices, in military bases and government buildings, the same image appeared. A human woman in a uniform, speaking calmly. "People of the Korath homeworld," she said, "your orbital defenses are now disabled. If we wanted to destroy your cities, we could do so right now. We will not. We are not here to harm you." Across the planet, billions of Korath stopped what they were doing to watch. "Your leaders sent your children to die against us," Yuna continued. "They promised you easy victory. They told you we were weak. They lied. Now ask them why. Ask them why they started a war they could not win. Ask them why they sacrifice your families for their pride." The screens went dark. Chaos erupted. In the capital city, crowds gathered outside government buildings, demanding answers. Korath citizens who had believed their leaders now wondered if everything they had been told was false. The military tried to restore order, but the shock was too great. High Overlord Vex stood in his throne room and felt something he had never felt before, true fear. Not of human weapons, not of their fleets. He was afraid of his own people. "The humans have turned our population against us," one of his generals said. "There are riots in 12 cities. The military is barely maintaining control." "Then crush the riots," Vex snarled. "Kill anyone who speaks against us." "Sir, if we do that, there will be civil war. We cannot fight the humans and our own people." Vex slammed his fist against his throne. He had no answer. The humans had attacked him without firing a single shot at civilians. They had defeated him with words and the truth. Far from the Koroth homeworld, Elder Morvax made a decision that would change history. He opened a private channel to Admiral Taiho's flagship. "Admiral," he said, "I wish to discuss terms." Taiho's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but alert. "Elder Morvax." "I am listening." "The Sindari Council withdraws from this war," Morvax said. "We should never have joined it. We followed Koroth arrogance, and it has cost us dearly." He paused. "We will accept whatever terms you offer." "I have one condition," Taiho replied. "Open your archives. Tell us everything. Which species committed crimes against humans or our allies? Who ordered the attacks? Who supported them, and who opposed them?" Morvax hesitated. This would mean betraying secrets that species had kept for centuries. It would destroy alliances and create new enemies. But what choice did he have? "Agreed," he said. One by one, the coalition began to fall apart. The Mirakai surrendered after losing their main battle fleet. The Felox retreated to their home systems and declared neutrality. Only the Koroth remained, fighting with desperate fury. General Dawan led the final campaign. His ground forces pushed toward the Koroth capital world, taking territory with remarkable speed. But he did not fight the way the Koroth expected. Koroth military doctrine was simple: destroy everything, kill everyone, leave nothing behind. It was how they had conquered 40 worlds. They expected humans to be the same dot instead. Johan's soldiers protected civilians. When they captured a city, engineers immediately began restoring power and water. Medical teams set up hospitals. Food distribution centers opened within hours. Koroth citizens who had been told humans were monsters found themselves being helped by them. "I do not understand," a Koroth officer said after surrendering his unit. "Why do you not kill us? Why do you help our people?" Dauhan looked at him steadily. "Because war is not about killing. It is about winning. And we win by showing your people that we are better than your leaders ever were." The officer had no response dot above the Koroth capital. The final battle was about to begin. The Felox and Mirakai had sent one last fleet to defend their ally. 4,000 ships, everything they had left. It was their final hope. Admiral Taiho's fleet was waiting for them. "Sir," Captain Yuna reported from her position. "Dr. Hannah reports that Project Nightfall Phase 2 is ready for deployment." "Activate it," Taiho said. Dr. Hannah had worked on Phase 2 for 10 years. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a signal, a program designed to take over enemy computer systems. It spread through communication networks like a disease, moving from ship to ship faster than anyone could stop it. The coalition fleet was about to fire when half their ships suddenly went dark. Engines stopped. Weapons failed. Lights turned off. 2,000 vessels became floating, helpless metal boxes. The remaining ships panicked. They broke formation, tried to flee, but human vessels were already surrounding them. It was not a battle. It was a surrender. On his flagship, Admiral Taiho opened a channel to the Koroth command ship. High Overlord Vex's face appeared on the screen. The once proud ruler looked broken. His gray skin was pale. His 4 hands trembled. "It is over," Taiho said simply. Your fleet is finished. Your allies have abandoned you. Your own people are rising against you. Surrender yourself, and we will spare your world. Vex stared at him with hatred in his dark eyes. I will never surrender to insects. Then your people will continue to suffer for your pride. Taiho's voice was calm, but final. The choice is yours. But know this, we can wait. You cannot. The screen went dark. At night, Captain Yuna's voice whispered through Vex's private chambers, somehow bypassing every security system. Your people do not have to die for your pride, she said. Surrender yourself, and we spare your world. Vex did not sleep that night. He sat on his throne, surrounded by guards who looked at him with doubt in their eyes. The end was coming. He could feel it, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The throne room of the Korath Dominion was silent when human soldiers finally arrived. They had expected a fight. They had prepared for traps, for desperate last stands, for the fury of a ruler who would never surrender. Instead, they found only bodies. General Dohan walked through the massive doors and stopped. High Overlord Ver sat on his throne, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. His dark eyes stared at nothing. A wound in his chest showed where the blade had entered. His own guards, said the Korath officer who had led the human soldiers inside. When he ordered us to execute civilians as a final act of defiance, they refused. When he tried to do it himself, they stopped him permanently. Dalhon looked at the body of the being who had started a war that killed millions. He felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The war is over, he said quietly. Spread the word to all Korath forces. Surrender will be accepted. No more blood needs to be spilled. The message traveled across what remained of the Korath Dominion. Soldiers who had fought for years put down their weapons. Ships that had been preparing for suicide attacks powered down their engines. A war that had shaken the galaxy came to an end not with a great explosion, but with a collective sigh of relief. On the space station Eternal Summit, the same place where this war had been decided, the peace treaty was signed. Admiral Taiho represented humanity. Around him sat the leaders of species who had once looked at humans with contempt. Now they looked with fear, with respect, and with shame. Humanity demands 3 things, Taiho said, his voice filling the great hall. First, full recognition of human sovereignty. Our territory is ours. No species may enter without permission. No species may threaten our people. The representatives nodded quickly. None would dare challenge this. Second, tribunals for war crimes. Those who ordered attacks on human civilians, who enslaved our people, who committed atrocities, will face justice. We have the archives of the Sindari. We know what happened. We know who is responsible. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. They knew their names might be in those archives. Third, a seat on this council. Humanity will no longer be ignored. We will no longer be silent. Our voice will be heard in galactic affairs. Elder Morvax stood slowly. His fur was grayer now than before the war. These terms are fair, he said. More fair than we deserve. The Sindari Council accepts them fully. One by one, the other species agreed. They had no choice. Human fleets could destroy them all if they refused. But many of them had begun to understand something important. Humanity could have demanded so much more. They could have taken territory, resources, slaves. They could have done everything that Korav had done to other species. But they did not. The tribunals lasted for 6 months. Lieutenant Sun Wu, now a decorated captain, testified before the Galactic Court. He stood in a room filled with representatives from every species and told his story. I was 23 when the war began, he said. I saw friends die. I killed enemies who were trying to kill me. I watched ships explode with thousands of beings inside them. The room was completely silent. But I also saw something else, Sun Wu continued. I saw human soldiers share their food with Korath children who had nothing. I saw our doctors work through the night to save enemy wounded. I saw engineers rebuild cities they had just captured. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of aliens who had once seen his species as insects. We could have been monsters, he said. After what you did to us, no one would have blamed us. But we chose differently. Remember that. Remember that when humanity had the power to destroy, we chose to rebuild instead. Ambassador Lyris rose to speak when the testimonies were finished. She had warned the council before the war. They had not listened. Now they had no choice but to listen. We asked why humanity was silent for 100 years, she said. We assumed it was fear. We assumed it was weakness. We were fools. She paused. They were silent because they had nothing to prove to us. They knew who they were. They knew what they could do. They did not need our approval or our recognition. She turned to face Counselor Minji, who now sat in humanity's seat on the council. We wasted 100 years of potential friendship because of our arrogance. We forced them to show us their strength when they would have preferred to share their kindness. That is our shame. We must carry it forever. Minji nodded slowly. There was no hatred in her eyes, but there was no forgiveness either. Not yet, perhaps not ever. Some wounds took generations to heal. 10 years passed. General Dawen retired to a small house on New Mizzen, the world where the war had truly begun. Sometimes he walked through the memorial gardens, looking at the names of those who had died. Sometimes he sat quietly and watched the sunset, remembering battles he wished he could forget. Captain Yuna, now Admiral Yuna, commanded the first joint human-alien exploration fleet. Ships from 12 species flew together toward the edges of known space. They searched for new worlds, new resources, new mysteries. The same species that had once tried to destroy each other now worked side by side. Dr. Hana no longer built weapons. She taught at an academy on Earth, where human and alien students learned together. Young Korath sat in classrooms next to young humans, studying science and history and art. They were the first generation that would grow up without war. Admiral Taiho was old now. His hair was white, his body tired. He spent most of his time in an orbital station above Earth, watching his homeworld turn slowly in the darkness of space. One day, Counselor Minji visited him there. A new species has been detected at the galaxy's edge, she said. They are sending signals. The council is debating how to respond. Taiho smiled slightly. Let me guess. Some want to ignore them. Some want to make demands. Some want to show strength. As always, Minji agreed. Old habits are hard to break. What did you tell them? Minji looked out at the stars. I told them to let the new species choose their own silence or their own voice. I told them we learned that lesson already. I told them that patience is its own kind of strength. Taiho nodded slowly. Good. We have spent enough time teaching the galaxy to fear us. Perhaps now we can teach them something better. The galaxy had changed forever. Species that had once conquered and enslaved now rebuilt and cooperated. The Korath Dominion was gone, replaced by a democratic government that humans had helped create. The Sindari, once passive observers of evil, now actively worked for justice. Even the Thelox and Mirakoi had begun to change their ways. And humanity? They were no longer the quiet species hiding in their corner of space. They were no longer the mystery that others whispered about. They had become the example others tried to follow. Not because of their weapons, though those were powerful. Not because of their technology, though it was advanced. Because when they had the power to destroy everything, they chose to build instead. When they had the right to seek revenge, they chose to offer justice. When they could have ruled the galaxy through fear, they chose to lead through example. The war had started because the galaxy ignored humanity's. Silence. It ended because the galaxy finally understood what that silence meant. It meant they had nothing to prove. It meant they were waiting for the universe to be ready for them. And now, at last, it was.